Have you ever stood on a castle wall at night, looked out into the darkness, and wondered what it was really like for the guards who kept watch centuries ago? We see them in movies, stoic figures in armor. But what was their reality? Was it just hours of boring silence? Or was there more to it? Tonight, we re-pulling back the curtain of history to explore the often overlooked world of the medieval castle guard after the sun went down. Forget the Hollywood cliches. We're about to uncover the real story of how these sentinels spent their long, dark nights. First things first, let's talk about who these guards actually were. They weren't always the highly trained, elite soldiers you might imagine. In many castles, the guard duty, or watch and ward, was a responsibility shared among the local men. Think of it like a medieval neighborhood watch program, but with much higher stakes. If you were a man living in the town or on the lord's lands, you were often required to take your turn on the walls. For more important castles or during times of war, you'd find professional soldiers, men-at-arms, or mercenaries. These guys were the career military men, and their experience was vital for the castle's security. So the person next to you on the wall could be your neighbor the baker, or a battle-hardened veteran who'd seen it all. The shift, known as the watch, was grueling. It wasn't a cushy 9 to 5. A guard's night was typically divided into several watches, often lasting 3 to 4 hours each. Imagine standing or slowly pacing a stone walkway for 4 hours straight in the dead of night, regardless of the weather. We're talking freezing rain, biting winds, snow, or stifling summer humidity. There were no heated guardhouses or modern comforts. Your only protection was your cloak, and whatever meager fire might be burning in a nearby brazier, if you were lucky. The sheer physical endurance required was immense. So, what did they actually do for all those hours? The primary job was, of course, to watch and listen. A guard's senses had to be razor sharp. They were listening for the snap of a twig in the woods, the faint splash of an oar in the moat, or the muffled sound of footsteps. They were watching for any unnatural movement in the shadows, the glint of metal in the moonlight, or the distant light of a torch where none should be. It was a job that demanded constant, unwavering attention. A moment's lapse could mean disaster for everyone inside the castle walls. They weren't just looking for an invading army. They were also on the lookout for spies, saboteurs trying to start a fire, or even just common thieves. To help them, they had a system. At regular intervals, maybe every half hour or hour, a guard would have to call out. You've probably heard it in movies. All's well. This wasn't just for show. It was a chain reaction. One guard would shout it, and the next guard down the wall would hear it and repeat it, and so on, all the way around the castle. This simple call and response system let the captain of the watch know that everyone was awake, alert, and at their post. If a call was missed, it was an immediate red flag. Someone would be sent to investigate right away. Was the guard asleep, or had something happened to them? But let's be real. You can't maintain intense focus for 4 hours straight in the dark. Human nature takes over. So, what did they do to fight the crushing boredom and the overwhelming urge to sleep? Well, they found ways to pass the time. Guards on the same section of wall would talk, but quietly. They'd share stories, tell jokes, or just complain about the cold, the lord, or their low pay. It was a way to build camaraderie and keep each other's spirits up. They were in it together, after all. They also played games. These had to be small, quiet games they could play discreetly. Dice were incredibly popular throughout the medieval period. A pair of dice could be easily hidden in a pouch and brought out for a quick game when the sergeant wasn't looking. Simple board games, scratched onto a spare piece of slate, or even the stone floor, were also common. Games like Nine Men's Morris were perfect for this. It was a silent, strategic way to engage the mind and make the hours tick by a little faster. Of course, gambling was often officially forbidden, but it happened all the time. A few coins could change hands over a game of dice, adding a little excitement to the monotonous night. Food and drink were also a big part of the night watch. A guard would likely bring a small pouch with some rations to get them through their shift. This wasn't a feast. It was simple, practical food. A hunk of hard bread, a piece of cheese, maybe some dried meat, or a cold sausage. It was something to chew on, to break the monotony. And to drink? Water, of course, but often it was ale or beer. In the medieval period, beer was a staple of everyone's diet. It was generally weak, what we might call small beer, and was safer to drink than water from a potentially contaminated well. It provided calories and hydration. However, getting drunk on watch was a huge no-no. A drunk guard was a useless guard, and the punishment for being caught intoxicated on duty was severe, ranging from a fine to a flogging, or even dismissal. Let's talk about the gear. The image of a guard in full plate armor is mostly a myth for the night watch. That kind of armor was heavy, noisy, and reserved for battle. A typical night guard would wear more practical protection. A padded jacket called a gambeson was common, offering surprising protection and much-needed warmth. Over that, they might wear a leather jerkin or a coat of mail. On their head, a simple metal helmet, like a kettle hat, provided protection without obstructing their vision or hearing. Their main weapon was often a polearm, like a spear or a halberd. These were perfect for defense on a wall, keeping enemies at a distance. They'd also carry a sword or a dagger as a sidearm. And of course, a lantern or a torch was essential, though used sparingly to avoid giving away their exact position. Now, what happened if they actually saw something? The procedure was strict and immediate. A guard wouldn't just start shouting, "We're under attack." That would cause panic. Instead, they had specific signals. The first step was to alert the next guard, and the sergeant of the watch, often using a prearranged signal. This could be a specific pattern of banging their spear on the stone, or a call that was different from the all's well. More urgently, they might be equipped with a horn or a bell. The sound of the alarm bell ringing through the night was the signal for the entire castle to spring into action. It meant battle stations. Archers would rush to their positions, soldiers would don their armor, and the gates would be secured. The guard who sounded the alarm had just become the most important person in the castle. But let's be honest, full-scale night attacks were relatively rare. Much of the time, the enemy was simply the cold, the darkness, and the heavy weight of sleep. Falling asleep on watch was considered one of the most serious offenses a guard could commit. The punishments were harsh because the risk was so great. A sleeping sentinel could get the entire garrison killed, so they did whatever it took to stay awake. They'd pace relentlessly, splash cold water on their face, sing quiet songs to themselves, or even pinch themselves. The fear of being caught asleep was a powerful motivator. Life as a night guard was a strange mix of extreme boredom and moments of high-stakes terror. It was a job defined by long periods of quiet observation, punctuated by the need for instant, decisive action. These weren't the glorious knights we read about in tales of chivalry. They were the ordinary, hard-working men who formed the backbone of castle defense. Their discipline, their endurance, and their sharp senses were the invisible shield that protected everyone sleeping soundly within the walls. So the next time you see a castle, imagine those lone figures on the battlements in the dead of night. Picture them stamping their feet to stay warm, whispering stories to a fellow guard, clutching a spear, and scanning the darkness. Theirs was a vital, unglamorous, and absolutely essential role in the medieval world. Their vigilance was the price of peace. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed peering into the secret life of castle guards, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more dives into the fascinating details of history. Let me know in the comments what other aspects of medieval life you'd like to explore next. See you in the next video.